Because I'm so anti that whole thing.
Oh, could you tell I am?
Yeah, I could and I loved it.
Trying for years. You guys can, damn. You should pop this too. My chair down. You didn't see Vivian yet, did you? I think so. Baby and Francis. New grandbaby, Nathan. That's right. My daughter's proud that she has her. Oh, she's beautiful.
We hit the time. Hello, hello, hello. Everybody
Hello.
ready?
Jenny.
You all good?
All good. I like the names.
Denise, most important person to be ready, is ready. Like to open this special meeting of the Point Pleasant Beach Board of Adjustment for May 7th, 2026. Get a reading of the Open Public Meetings Act, please.
Adequate notice at the time of this meeting was given under the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and was posted and sent to the official designated newspapers in compliance with the law. Roll call.
Roll call,
Secretary
please.
Davis.
Here.
Ms. McFadden.
Here.
Mr. McGee.
Here.
Chairman Strachus.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Clayton.
Here.
Mr. Simonovich.
Here.
Your initials are listed. If you can vote, could I have a motion to memorialize the February 5th minutes?
So moved.
Rob.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
And Chairman Strachus.
Yes.
Motion to approve of February 19th.
Here.
Second. Ms. McFadden.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Clayton.
Yes.
The heck is he talking about that?
Mr. Simonovich.
Yes. I gave him my best shot.
That's funny. Be it resolved by the Board of Adjustment that it hereby memorializes the action and vote approving application 2026-12 of Wave Watch LLC 149 Boardwalk with conditions.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Clayton.
Yes.
And Mr. Simonovich.
Yes.
And I had sent it out, the same woman actually is Lakefront Holdings, and she requested, an extension of a year on her resolution. We're back to extensions, we always used to do that before COVID and, the Permit Extension Act, which went on for a really long time. But it's been lifted, so they need to get extensions again. And, could I get a motion to give her the extension to April 18th, 2027?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Secretary Davis?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Clayton?
Yes.
Mr. Simonovich?
Yes.
And Chairman Strachus.
Yes.
And on to our special application this evening, 2025-35 for Thomas Devine at 218 Channel Drive, represented by Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Jackson for the applicant Tom Devine for application for 218 Channel Drive. As a preliminary matter, I'd like to mark my PowerPoint presentation, which I've handed out, consisting of 16 pages. A3. We have here tonight Mr. Devine, who is the applicant, Joe Kashuba from KBA Engineering, Mr. Greg Cox, the architect, and Christine Cafone, the planner. So what we have is, we think, a beautiful design by Mr. Cox to have 3 residential units on Channel Drive, be fully FEMA compliant. Mr. Cox will go through the aesthetics and the architecture. We think this will be an upgrade. What exists there now is a non-FEMA compliant home, and it's kind of a bit of a sore thumb. And we're seeking to replace it with, we think that's something that's appropriate. It is a conditionally permitted use in the zone, as I understand it. We do not comply with all the conditions. So this use is a use that the governing body has determined is appropriate here. So many cases we come in where it's a D variance, the use is not allowed. It wasn't listed as an enumerated use. In a conditional use case, the idea is, you know, do you fit in? Have you ameliorated the concerns that go with the requirements that you don't meet? And is your design suitable, and does it work, notwithstanding that you do not meet the conditions? That's going to be covered by Mr. Cox in detail, as well as our planner, Ms. Cafone, as far as the legal and planning basis for that. So there you can see where we are on Channel Drive, which, you know, you know, the board obviously will use its own judgment and recollection. I don't know if Channel Drive has been a dynamo of development and activity over the last 30 years. And we think that this residential use is appropriate for this zone to bring a little life and vitality to it, and direction. Here's our site plan. And we have adequate parking, we have recreational amenity. We think that we provide a nice landscaping plan, et cetera. So we're hopeful that the board will see that the same way after our presentation. And with your permission, if I could have Mr. Joe Kashuba come forward, be sworn and provide testimony as our civil engineer.
Good evening.
Do you swear affirm the testimony that you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Kashuba, could you please give the board your background, credentials, education, experience, and please leave out no details.
Certainly.
Please be brief, just tell us what you do, and you've been here many times before.
I will try and balance the two. Joseph Kashuba from KBA Engineering Services, licensed engineer and licensed planner. I'm testifying as a professional engineer tonight. I have been a professional engineer since 2005. My licenses are in order and have testified for numerous boards, including this one.
Numerous times in front of us. We accept. Please proceed, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kashuba, with the chairman's permission, can you please give the board an overview of the site, what's there now, the zone?
Certainly.
Elevation, you know, the basics, just to kind of set the stage.
Certainly. So the site is at the intersection of Channel Drive and Chicago Avenue. It's in the MC zone within the MC2 overlay zone. Contains an existing 1.5-story single-family dwelling, which is to be demolished. The property is in the flood zone AE9 at that location. The applicant is looking to remove the existing driveway and structure and construct a 3-unit townhome project, each of which will have 3 bedrooms. The access will be from Chicago Avenue. The parking will be underneath the structure, as identified on the site plans. It does require some variances as a result. The applicant's planner will provide testimony regarding the D variances and bulk variances that are required, but I'll simply list them. It is a conditional use variance, meaning that multifamily use or townhouses is a permitted use here as long as we meet all of the conditions, and there are a few conditions that we do not meet. Specifically, lot area, a minimum of 25,000 square foot is required. This lot is 6,363 square feet. There's a condition that the site be accessed from 3 frontages. This particular application being on a corner is accessed from 2 frontages. And then lastly, density, a maximum 10 units per acre is permitted. The request is 20.5. There are some bulk variances requested as a result of the application. Specific, the rear yard, 10 feet, is identified on our plans. That rear yard is actually the easterly sideline, which acts more as a side than the rear, where it's identified in the board engineer's review letter, 30 feet is required for that rear yard. The southern end, I would go to the layout plan. Next one. Next one. One more. There we go. As you can see, it's designed to comply with the front yard setbacks. The rear yard acts as the southerly end at 25 feet, and the easterly end acts as the side. However, the board engineer has identified, because the frontage is on Chicago, that the easterly side is the rear, 10 feet is provided, 30 feet is identified as required. There's a comment regarding the balconies being in the front yard. However, in this townhouse section, and I'll defer to Ray for confirmation, but balconies are allowed to extend in the front yard up to 5 feet, I believe. So I don't believe the balconies proposed require any relief, but I'll defer to Ray if that's, there's any concerns with that. And then lastly, deck sizes are limited to 200 square feet. The deck size proposed is 247 square feet. We are proposing a drive aisle that accesses the underneath of the building to the parking stalls. You see 7 parking stalls are provided underneath the building. There's 2 stacked, or I should say 4 stacked parking stalls on the northerly side and 3 single stalls on the southerly side. The drive aisle accessing those is 23.81 feet. 24 feet is the requirement. The reason we're off by 0.19 feet, which is about 2 inches, 2 1/4, I believe, is just the doorway width that's provided on the structure is 23.81, so we match that. It's a de minimis limit, and circulation is not compromised by that. In fact, 2-way access aisles are only required to be 20 feet wide. 24 feet is required for vehicular movements. The 24 feet is provided on the interior to circulate. However, it's just not provided at the doorway, at the front access doorway. Passenger-sized vehicles can access all the spaces. It is, an efficient use of space. We have a limited size on this property. It is substantially undersized, but surrounded by development. There is a backup area provided on the easterly side, so there's essentially an opening and access to the parking from both the east and west sides. West side being the primary access off of Chicago. The eastern side is to allow for a backup area, so that the vehicles, specifically at the easternmost, and for the board's edification, east is up on page. So those vehicles at the top have an opportunity to back out. So they would back into that little back out area through the access doorway and then pull out the front of the
Want to just outline that
structure.
with the movement, you could use the,
Certainly. We're getting really high tech. So these cars here, they would pull in forward and make this turn. This 24-foot wide aisle is no different than any parking lot that you would be in. So certainly not a limiting factor. These vehicles can make the turn. They would come in and access and park. They would be designated by unit, so 2 stacked stalls would be designated to a unit. So one unit would own and utilize one stack, no different than a 9-foot wide driveway on any other property. You know,
Except there's a wall next to it.
except there's a wall next to it.
Okay, all right.
So point being, if you have a 9-foot wide driveway, you have multiple cars, you gotta plan out the day, okay, who's leaving first tomorrow? Maybe they put their car in the rear, no different in this particular layout. So the cars would access, park, and then to back out, they would back into this area that allows them to back and then pull forward to exit the underneath of the structure. Same with this vehicle here. We show it backed in, which is certainly feasible. They could pull in, angle here and back into the space, or they could pull in forward and use that to back out and exit the stalls. All the stalls are fully accessible. I have no concerns with any circulation throughout the underneath of the structure. We provide sufficient parking. The three-bedroom units have a requirement of 2.4 stalls per unit, or a total of 7.2. Under the residential site improvement standards, you round off anything 0.5 or below. So 7 parking spaces are required under the RSIS, 7 parking spaces are provided. And that is using the higher townhouse parking standard. For stormwater management, we are proposing a small-scale infiltration basin underneath the patio on this southern side of the site. It's essentially a dry well to mitigate the increase in impervious coverage here. The site does not qualify as a major development under the municipal ordinance or state standards. but our design does reduce both the peak flows as well as the volumes coming off of the site. So stormwater will be improved as a result of the application compared to existing conditions. We will have new water and sewer connections to Channel Drive, and all of the mechanical units will be designed to be elevated as is required in a flood zone. Everything will be fully flood compliant. And to note, I'm sure the board has heard probably multiple times about the climate-adjusted flood elevation and the increase to flood zones created by the NJDEP. And I should say, not increase to flood zones, increase to flood requirements under DEP rules. This complies with those new rules as well, as far as the building height. So the benefit of having the parking underneath is it is substantially flood compliant and complies even with the new rules. For waste management, we provide rollaway cans on the pad back here. Those cans would be rolled out to the street on garbage day by the owners. The site is fully accessible for fire access, so pursuant to NFPA requirements, every part of the structure exterior must be within 150 feet of an accessible fire access, in this case, the public streets. So every part of the exterior of the building is within 150 feet of the public street. So it is fully accessible under fire, meets the NFPA requirements for fire access. We do have a little bit of light spillage onto Channel Drive as well as onto Chicago from the building-mounted lights. These triangles identify the building-mounted lights that we're proposing. If you go down, you can go back down two sheets. One, two, perfect. So you do see a little bit of spillage at the driveway, 1 foot candle. That's intentional, trying to provide a safe access into the structure. We also have some spillage at the walkway. It is not a substantial amount of spillage. It does not exceed the street, meaning we do not have any light that spills out onto adjacent properties. It's purely onto the public street, no different than the public street lights. So we provide a safe and adequate lighting design as a result of this. And to correct myself, actually the A indicators here are the building-mounted lights, the circle with the arrow. The filled-in triangles are the doorways. We are proposing to restripe 2 parking stalls, on-street parking stalls located here at the southern end of Chicago Avenue. In order to provide adequate separation from the driveway. You see that the existing parking stall kind of aligns with the driveway. Technically, you know, we could argue that the parking stall could stay there, but it's rather close. And for safety, we've chosen to shift those stalls down to the south. The neighboring property is the motel property where everything is striped off. There is no parallel parking along that side. We also made those stalls 20 feet deep, or 20 feet in length. Which is adequate in this scenario. So typically a parallel parking stall might be 22 or 23 feet to allow for a parallel car to maneuver into and out of the space. Because this is an isolated 2 spaces, the southerly space can be accessed simply driving in and backing out. The northerly space, the same, can be backed into and driven out of. So providing 20-foot long spaces here, more than adequate from an engineering standpoint, given the uniqueness of that
So it's not a
layout.
parallel parker's nightmare.
It is absolutely not. They're probably 2 of the easiest to pull into.
So just. to
No
put-
different than what exists there today, just a little shorter.
So you, in your view, that's still plenty of room to get in and out, and the parking spaces are plenty big.
Correct. We recognize that the borough mayor and council needs to approve the curb cut, and we feel that the parking provided is adequate. And most importantly, we're not losing any on-street parking as a result of the application. That's essentially all of the engineering-related testimony with regard to the application. We are providing landscaping, 4 street trees. We are providing a patio area at the southerly end of the building with access for some tables and a barbecue. So there's some availability for some outdoor enjoyment of the property. We are providing foundation plantings surrounding the property, plantings along the back of the garbage or the refuse pad to screen that from the neighbor. We are providing a fence, compliant privacy fence along the easterly and southerly property lines, and a walkway out to the street on both the Channel Drive side as well as walkways out to the street on the Chicago Avenue side. Plenty of room for pedestrian access, and again, no concerns with regard to circulation or access, plenty of parking, adequate for the three spaces, or 3 units that are provided.
Anything else from an engineering standpoint? Any comments or any engineering concerns in Mr. Savacool's letter that you haven't touched on or need to be addressed?
I don't believe so. I believe we've addressed all of the comments in Mr. Savacool's review letter. There are a few comments about plan cleanup items, which we can certainly provide. I think from an engineering standpoint, the layout and the setbacks are all more than adequate for the property. The parking stalls are compliant size. So no other engineering-related items to discuss unless the board or Mr. Savacool has any particular comments or questions.
Anyone on the board?
Is there any lighting on the eastern side? There's no lighting?
No, we're not proposing any building lighting on the easterly side.
I was looking at my paperwork when you talked about trash management.
Yes.
How are you doing that?
Just rollaway cans are gonna be stored on this pad, and they'll be rolled out to the street.
Okay.
Ray, did you have anything else from the letter?
No,
It's all
I
covered.
mean, the parking stalls are compliant. I just noted that obviously you're parking against a wall, which is like a guy parking right on your stall line. It's difficult to access your vehicle with a 9-foot wide stall against a wall.
Board good?
Okay.
Anyone in the audience have any questions of the engineer? Be specific to that testimony right there at this time? No? No? Come on, you gotta come, you could stay there, but you gotta speak loudly and tell us your name.
Still have a problem with my name.
Yeah.
from last time. My name is John Hurler. My family owns the adjoining property on the east with a Atlantic Motel, on the east and also on the south of that new development. Garbage always is a problem. We got.
Sir, I just wanna remind you right now, this is question, so you're gonna phrase this as a question,
Okay,
cause it's questions to the engineer, and then later on, you'll be able to tell us
sure.
how you feel and all that.
That's fine.
Yeah?
The question on where you're gonna move the parking spots on the street.
Uh,
Could you explain what the actual, where the curb is on that? Because that hatched area is on our property.
Correct, that hatched area is on your property. We're leaving the end of that parallel stall even with our property line, so it will not be in front of your property. And those 2 spaces will be generally in the same location as they are today, just shortened. So this space here would be reduced about 4 feet. It still allows for 2 vehicles. It still complies with the standard parking stall depth of the borough.
Okay, so it will be, it will not have any parking in front of our hatched area.
Correct.
And could you explain a little more about the parking, the garbage?
Certainly. So if we pull up this is good. There'll be a pad on the
Size?
eastern side of the building. It's about 5 feet by about 18 feet, 5 by 15, I believe. There'll be 2 cans per unit anticipated, a garbage can and a recycling can.
So first of all, let's stay with the 5 foot.
Mhm.
So what's the distance between the new fence that you're going to put up
Mhm.
and the edge of that pit?
5 feet.
So it's roughly, what's the total, 10 feet?
Correct.
And so you're gonna, how many cans can you fit in?
In that 15 feet, a typical can's about 24 to 28 inches wide. So in that 15 feet, we can provide the 6 cans necessary.
Okay, and when you get to, could you give us a preview, you're saying it's 3 3-bedroom units in there, and they can sleep, you know, if you really.
The architect's gonna go through the whole layout of the building.
My concern is, that's kind of close to us.
Yeah, well, you'll be able to come back and ask those questions.
All right,
Yeah,
I understand.
it's just part of the procedure, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Anyone else on the board? Anything? Anybody else in the audience have any questions of the engineer? No? Mr. Jackson?
Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to call Mr. Greg Cox, our architect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kishuba. I need to sit here for the computer.
Do you swear or testimony that you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Cox, you can also give a brief professional overview, as you've been here many times. We don't need to know every study hall you ever sat in or anything.
Okay, I'm a licensed professional architect in the state of New Jersey and a licensed planner as well. I received my architectural license back in '87, somewhere around there, been before this board many times. I'm gonna testify as an architect and may cross over a little bit into some planning and just some minor stuff.
Planner as well.
I'm a licensed planner in New Jersey as well.
We accept. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, I know you've prepared an outline with the chairman's permission. Please just provide your testimony and analysis and assessment of this site.
Sure. So,
I'll use this to pull up the thing. This too.
you got that? Oh, that's cool. That's something I could do from here, but it
Works
might
better
not
with his
work.
rabbit.
So, what we have on the screen are a couple of renderings of the proposed building, but first I'd like to talk a little bit about the MC zone. So, we're in the MC zone. What's allowed in the MC zone, oh, this is great. Yeah. What's allowed in the MC zone are marine commercial uses, offices, and you're allowed an apartment on the second floor above a commercial use. You're allowed 2 stories, not to exceed 35 feet. The minimum lot size in the MC zone to be compliant is 10,000 square feet. We're 6,363 and a half, we're a little shy, but that's the existing property. You're required to be 100 feet wide, we're 50.9 feet wide, and the minimum depth is 125, which we conform to. The setbacks in the MC zone would be a front yard of 25 feet. We have 2 front yards, and typically, can you zoom in on that? Typically in Point Pleasant Beach, when you have a corner lot, you get to pick your front yard, and the opposite yard is your rear yard. So if Channel Drive is our front yard at 25 feet, our rear yard would have to be 25 feet in the MC zone, in the basic zone. Our side yard would be over here to the east at 10, and this would be another front yard. And you're also allowed a building coverage of 40%. So,
Can I just ask you, Mr. Cox, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So what you're providing is the setback requirements for the general MC zone, not for townhouses, is that correct?
correct.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
get there. So, trying to design a project in the MC zone using the MC standards presents some challenges. Any project on this piece of property would require some variances, even if it conformed in use of, strict use of the MC zone, primarily because we have a small lot. So we have, if we were to have a non-variance building with those setbacks, the shape of the building would be 15.9 feet wide and 75 feet long. And that's really a very impractical building. Also, we would have to contend with our flood zone requirements, not only the old zone, the old flood requirements, but the new real rules from New Jersey. So we're in a 9-foot flood elevation, which is 9 feet above mean sea level. Our property is roughly 8.5 feet above sea level. So under the current, the new rules are current, but prior to the new rules, Point Pleasant Beach was the BFE plus 3 feet. So compliant first floor here would be a minimum of elevation 14, right? So that puts us about 5.5 feet above existing grade if we were to have our finished floor at flood elevation. So that's a challenge, because we would need to, if it were commercial, we'd need to provide some kind of handicap access. So if we provided a handicap access ramp, let's look at it this way. You don't want your first floor, if it's commercial use, to be so high above grade. So what can you do? Well, you could build a flood compliant low wall that would resist flood waters. Say that's 3 feet high. That would lower your required finished floor. So now you could get maybe a handicap ramp of about 2.5 feet high. Well, with a 2.5 foot high handicap ramp from grade to the first floor, it'd be, let's see, you'd be about 31 feet long for a handicap ramp. So now that handicap ramp width and length would have to come out of the square footage of the first floor. So if you wanted to put a commercial use or an office use on the first floor and get parking, the practical largest size of that first floor is going to be maybe 900 square feet. So the reality of having a 900 square foot commercial or office use in this location in town is really highly impractical. You either need a specific user who needs a small office, or you need a commercial use that everybody's going to somehow magically find tucked away over here. So it becomes a really impractical exercise to try and get a conforming use in the strict MC rules and provide handicap access and provide parking on the site. So we have a lot of challenges. For example, parking. If you had commercial parking, that's 1 car per 100 square feet. If it's an office, it's 1 car per 200 square feet. So if you had a small use and an apartment above, you'd need maybe, let's see, you'd need 5 cars for the commercial, plus maybe another 2 cars. You need like 7 cars and a dumpster. Well, you kind of run out of room. So we went through that exercise, and we said not only would it be a quirky little building that would very likely be empty, but it really doesn't fit into the overall scope of our neighborhood. So we have a better idea. Unfortunately, the town's already thought it through. If we use the MC2 zone overlay, now we have different options. So the MC2 zone overlay, and I'm going to read what the ordinance says about the overlay zone. It says the purpose, the Marine Commercial 2 MC2 zone overlay zone is established to provide sites for low-rise development of attached residential units, in parentheses townhouses, at medium to high densities. Such developments are intended to serve as a transition between areas of detached residences, over here in town, and more intensive commercial development, which obviously is Channel Drive. This overlay zone is intended as a first phase of a more comprehensive land use planning strategy for the revitalization of Broadway and Channel Drive area. In particular, the MC2 overlay provides opportunities for townhouse development along Chicago and Baltimore avenues. We're right on Chicago. Chicago and Baltimore avenues, which serve as key pedestrian linkages between the residential area south of Broadway and the marine commercial uses north of Channel Drive. So people can walk this way to things going on in Channel Drive. Now, item A, underneath that overlay zone criteria, the MC2 zone is an overlay zone whereby, in addition to the requirements of the underlying district, which is the MC zone, the following requirements shall apply. This is where we get into setbacks and lot coverage. In the event of a conflict with the requirements of the underlying zone, the provisions of the MC2 zone shall apply. So when this zone was created, it was intended to reimagine this area of town. And when a conflict applies, the concept is we want you to follow the MC2 zone, because that's where, when the town approved this, that's where they saw this area of town going. So, what's allowed in the MC2 overlay zone? Townhouses. We have 3 townhouses. They're allowed 2 stories and 35 feet. Well, we're 2 stories and we're 35 feet. The setbacks in the overlay zone, the front yard, zoom in a little bit. The front yard is 10 and 10. We happen to be 15 and 11, and I'll get to that in a second. The side yard is 10, and the rear yard is 30, and we've designed it at 25. The reason we pulled it back to 15 is it's really closer to where the existing building is. So 15 and 25 is 40, and the same as 10 and 30. So we shifted it a little bit because we thought it would fit better within the neighborhood, but we still have the open space that's intended by the zoning. The building coverage jumps up to 60% in the MC2 zone overlay. We're proposing 43.83% of building coverage. So what are the challenges going in this direction? Well, we still have a small lot. We're much smaller than what the overlay zone intended. But the thinking here is, this project, Harbor Lights, followed the MC2 zone overlay. This one over here, I keep forgetting the name of it. Anyway, it was the first project. That followed the overlay zone. In the middle of the MC2 zone overlay, we have this property and these other properties. Some are commercial, we've got a restaurant, some are, one's vacant, we have some motels. The thinking is, if the MC2 overlay zone is the zone that should prevail, eventually, as the rest of this zone develops over time, this property, instead of sticking out or being apart by itself now, will be more in conformance with the resulting zone. It'll be closer to what's developed over here and what is envisioned to be developed in the rest of the zone. So we think this is a much better solution to a small property within the MC2 zone overlay. We also have to contend with flood. Well, as our engineer testified, because we're parking underneath the building, which we need to get the parking, our first floor, the real rules would require it to be elevation 14, the lowest floor. The way we've designed this building, our lowest floor is elevation 18. So the good news is, we're gonna be more conforming than what's there, and we're also gonna conform to the new rules that the state has just implemented, even though we designed this a little while ago.
And with that, we're not seeking a height variance?
No, we're not. We're still within the 35 feet required height and two living levels. Design standards for the townhouses within the overlay zone, there's a couple of criteria. One, each townhouse unit should have a minimum of 1,500 square feet. Our units, we have 3. I'll show you the plans in a little bit. Our units are 1,798, 1,787, and 1,768. So we conform to that.
So I'm gonna stop you for 1 minute. So there's a minimum requirement. That's not that uncommon. But
Right.
why have a minimum requirement? What's the goal from an architectural standpoint between, requiring a minimum size? In other words, it must be 1,500 or greater.
Right.
And you're greater, so what does that do?
Well, what that does is, in a project of any size, it makes sure that you're allowing a certain use, in this case a townhouse, but the unit's not gonna be so tiny that on any given lot, you could shove in a bunch of townhouses. They have to have a certain minimum size to be commensurate with the rest of the zone, so you don't have an 800 square foot condo unit. They're all around 1,500, 2,000, something like that, they're all similar.
It also provides you with a nice sized home, right?
Yeah,
It's
it
a
does.
1,700 square foot house, is a good sized house.
Right, and you'll see when we get to the plans, I think we laid it out pretty well.
All right, please continue.
Also encouraged in the design standards, this is section 6 of the MC2's overlay zone. Item B, it encourages balconies, stoops, steps, open porches, decks, bay windows, raised doorways, chimneys, and awnings projected from the facade of the building. So they don't, we don't want boxes, we want something with some character, some shape to it.
And that's been borne out, the other
Yeah.
townhomes
It's
that are built?
across the street, yeah, and actually, leave it right there, because, it also encourages, in the open porches, it says that the front yard setback for porches, balconies, the things I just listed, to be no closer than 5 feet to the property line. So it encourages, if this is my 10-foot setback from the main building, let's put something else in front of it, like an open porch or a balcony or a bay window. But we don't want it so close that it encumbers the street, so we want it set back about 5 feet. And that's what we did. So on our Chicago Avenue side, our front yard is 11 feet. We projected out a covered 1-story porch, and that's set back from the property line 5 foot. Under area yard structural requirements for townhouses, which is item 8 under the overlay zone. Item C says townhouse units shall be a minimum of 3 units per building. And again, in thinking ahead, when they developed this zone, they didn't want a single townhouse unit or 2 townhouse units. They wanted something of a relative size that looked not like a huge building, but at least a good-sized building.
A connected 2-unit building is a duplex, right?
Yeah, that's a 2-family house.
And this has a different look than a duplex would, so.
Yes. So that was a requirement, we happen to meet that requirement. Front yard setback is 10 feet, the side yard setback is 10 feet, the rear yard setback is 30. We're proposing 25 for a number of reasons. Allows us to have our parking work out underneath the building. And again, the lot coverage bumps up to 60%, but the impervious coverage stays at 70%. And the parking standard for RESIS is 2.4 cars per 3-bedroom unit. We have 3 3-bedroom units, that's 7.2 cars, we have 7. And I'm always thrilled to come before this board and to say we have enough parking. And we also have 2 on the street that are gonna stay, which is awesome. If you go to my rendering, that's good. Where Tom and I spent a lot of time trying to get the elevations just right. You can see that we've used a variety of materials that we think are all compatible. A lot of different shapes. We've got some projecting balconies, a bay window, the 1-story porch I mentioned, some insets to create a lot of visual movement on the building. We've got, again, one of the things the overlay zone likes to see is picture a corner building. We want to see that corner look like a corner. So we've got a little raised tower element. We envision the siding to be hardy plank siding. We're going to be using composite wood type of siding, which is a new thing. We're going to use hardy for the wainscoting, hardy plank. So very durable, high-end materials. We have some metal roofing elements and some regular shingle roof. We're envisioning Anderson 400 series windows, AZAC trim. So a really high-quality finish on the building, as well as what we think are attractive colors. And let's go to the plan.
I'll just interrupt you for a second. I don't know that it's necessarily a debatable subject that you commented, but I think it's I'll call it a stretch to say that we can envision how the future development of the rest of that property, to say that this is gonna be a better fit 10 years from now, 20 years from now, because you're taking a very small lot and turning it into something where there's a lot of criteria that's not being met. Of course, you didn't read any of those when you went through the numbers. I wouldn't either if I was you, but I just think that's the part that I'm saying, I'm not gonna debate it with you, but I think to say that we know that putting this in as a town home now fits better with what's gonna happen there in the future. I don't know, the hotel could stay there for many, many years and become upgraded and different, and who knows, you know, or it could all be torn down and turned into something that fits in the MC2 zone and doesn't have anything to do with townhomes. So, I don't know, that's all. It's a comment that I think that's, to me, a little bit of a reach to say that we know that this better fits with the future development of that area.
Okay, point taken.
Yeah, I just don't, I can't make that leap is where I'm at. Maybe when I hear further planning or whatever, but I don't know. You said you were gonna cross over in the planning, and that was some of the crossover,
That was pretty
so.
much as far as I'm gonna go. We have a real planner.
I get it, but I made my statement. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
So on the ground level, as was testified before, we have 7 parking spaces. We also have on-grade storage units and individual entrances to the 3 units above. You wanna go to 7, please? So the what we call the first floor is the first living level, and the 3 units are very similar. You enter into, you come up the stairs, you enter into a living dining space. We've got a kitchen and a bedroom on the first level. And, you know, they're fairly good size spaces, I believe. We have a bathroom on that level as well. And then on the second level, as you come up the stairs again, we have 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and each unit has a balcony. And that's pretty much the layout of the building from the exterior, if we go back to the exterior. No, rendering.
Yeah.
From these 3 views, you can see all four sides of the building. Obviously, the upper view here is from the corner, showing Channel Drive in Chicago. And, you know, knowing that this building is out there by itself, we've taken quite a bit of architectural design sense and have all 4 elevations have, you know, what we consider an attractive view. You know, what might be considered the back of the building, we've brought along a lot of the detailing and the roof shapes that we have on the front and the sides. And that's pretty much what I got. Any questions?
Anyone on the board have any?
The parking garage, lower level, the roof or ceiling height of the parking garage is what?
8 feet.
To
the underside of-
suspended members?
Yes,
Okay.
How long are the parking spots there?
9 by 18.
9 by 18. So, if a family comes in with a pickup truck, or my pickup truck's 19 feet, and then another decent-sized vehicle, it's gonna be pretty challenging if there's a combination of those there.
Yep.
You have your rod holders, yours is longer than 19.
Anyone else?
Just a couple quick things
Yeah.
that were in Ray's letter that I assumed, since they weren't covered under engineering, they were gonna be addressed with you. EV charging?
No, we have no EV charging, as I understand, because of a limited number of parking spaces we're required.
Excuse me, Mr., is that something, if a homeowner wanted to install a wall pack or an EV in their garage, they could, next to
Oh,
their
yeah,
business?
absolutely, sure. So if
So-
somebody had an electric vehicle and they, lived in one of these units, certainly could be installed. But it wouldn't be like a charging station that anybody could pull up to.
And you addressed ADA compliance in terms of a commercial building use and trying to use a ramp or something like that.
Yes.
With these, I'm not sure what the requirement is when you're building a townhome, but obviously there's no provisions for an elevator or lifter of any
Correct.
kind, so
And
no
they're not
ADA
required.
compliance at all. Okay. Thank you.
One more question, Mr. Cox. Can you just address that, I think one of the things noted in here is that the upper story deck is at 247 feet proposed and not the 200 that's required. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's good, Justin. So we have 3 balconies on the upper story. So the way the beach defines decks is how high they are above ground, right? Again, these total altogether, I'm gonna go with Ray's number, I'm sure that they're a little bit over, but no, that's the other thing. Let me zoom out a little bit here. So our neighbor.
Screen on?
No, that's good, that's good. Our neighbor's property is on the east and south side. And recognizing what the current use of the neighbor is, we thought it'd be a better idea, rather than have a balcony or a deck off the back of the unit, that it would be more appropriate to have it off what I call the front, which is the 2 street sides. So we're not looking down on the neighbor, you know, these owners are not, you know, peering into what's going on in the backyard. And I also think it lends itself architecturally to a more attractive looking building by having them on the street side.
Yeah, that, I appreciate the aesthetic value. I'm just asking about why the exception for the size? Or do you just disagree with the measurement?
No, I don't disagree
Okay.
with the measurement, but that's clearly all of them added together. The way the
Oh, okay.
ordinance is written, that I've always used it is like on a single family home. The idea is
Okay,
not to
that
have a
helps.
huge deck that looks down on the backyard of the neighbors, you know, the neighbor's pool and stuff, and that's not what's going on here.
Okay.
Ray?
Yeah, I just have 2, 19.9, 7F, 9B, strategic corners of the building, so can you speak to that? Because it speaks to shall incorporate more prominent architectural features, since they have at least 2 facades, visible, exposed to the streets. Features include towers, clocks, intricate large cornices, so if you could just speak to that.
Sure. If we look at the corner rendering, we have a gable facing the corner, also a hip roof to emulate a tower element. We've also got a bumped out box window or bay window with a gable element over it. And we've added some brackets to accent the projections, not only on the roof, but also holding up the balconies, the projected window. And we think that really speaks to the, and we've also done it, even though it's not on the corner, we've kind of emulated it on the southwest corner of the building, another gable enhanced with the balcony, so we think that speaks to the requirement of a corner building.
And then you had gone through some of the things that are permitted in the MC zone, and then you said that townhouses are permitted in the MC2 zone. Are single-family uses permitted in the MC2 zone as well?
Only if they're existing.
So a single-family residential use is permitted in the MC2 zone?
If it's existing, if this building were taken down and a new single-family home were built, I would believe that we need a variance.
We've also had rulings that when you take an existing single-family or any structure and elevate it and enlarge it, that requires a D1 variance.
Well, this is in the MC2 zone, so I don't know. I
Well,
don't
only
recall that we've
existing-
actually seen that, but.
Existing single-family homes are permitted, they have to be the ones that are there. If you enlarge them or expand them, you're expanding a non-conforming use, it's a D1.
Well, I disagree with that. It's in the MC2 zone where it says any existing single-family residential use is permitted. It doesn't say single-family residential structure, it says single-family residential use is permitted.
and respectfully, we make the building bigger. I've had the zoning officer interpret that changing an existing and expanding it as an expansion of a nonconformity,
In the MC2 zone.
not in the MC2
Oh.
zone.
All right, thank you.
I believe it was in the RR1 where single-family homes are also permitted.
Mr. Cox, this lot size, because both you and the engineer have openly said it's undersized, obviously, it's 25% of the requirement, but this is a fairly standard lot size for a single-family home, right? 50 by 125 is pretty much, there's some smaller at 50 by 100, I acknowledge, but many lots in town, right, are that next size up of 50 by 125.
Yep.
Okay.
Personally, I question whether a single-family home on that lot would be a good use, knowing what's across the street currently. And as you said, could be a week, could be years, that, the neighborhood stays the way it is. My
Yeah, and
opinion-
I'm sorry to cut you off, right, but
Well,
just saying, across the street, what you're comparing to meets all those other things of
Well, no,
lot
no.
size
My point
and
is,
open.
if the question is, would a single-family home fit? Yeah. Would it be a single-family home that would be commensurate with other single-family homes in town? I don't think so. From an architectural standpoint, do you wanna live in a single-family home across from the trucks that are, coming in and out with fish?
So why would you wanna live in a condo that's across from those trucks coming in
Well,
and out?
a condo is oftentimes more of a summer home type of setup.
In
That
this town?
maybe yes, maybe not, right? But I think is the way we've got it designed, the way it fits into the intent of the overlay zone, which is, is it gonna happen tomorrow? Probably not. But is it the intent of that zone? It clearly is, because that's the way the zone was written. So that, whenever that zone was created and the reasons for it, from a planning standpoint, that's what was envisioned for that section of town. So, we think
Question.
we're more in keeping with that.
Does this intensify the issue of in low-income housing?
No.
This would not,
What do you, I guess,
going from
what
one
do you
to
mean by that?
three, from going from a single family to three.
no, so only if you create 5 residential dwellings, then you're required to provide affordable housing. Less than that, you're not required to provide.
You're not required, but
Right.
does that intensify the need down the road? Meaning like, hey, because you have X amount of houses, you need X amount of low income.
No. Certainly Ms. Cafone, who is more schooled than I am on that, can
Perfect.
adequately answer that when she testifies.
Anyone else on the board? Anyone in the audience have any questions of the architect? Again, this is questions specific to his testimony, so come on up.
Hi.
And then you're gonna just state your name and then.
Johnny Hurler, Atlantic Motel, here on the property.
Uh-huh.
Just ask, do you anticipate this for year-round occupancy or for seasonal?
I don't anticipate others. It's designed as a residential unit.
Okay.
However, the owner decides to market it and either sell it or rent it or,
So a 3-bedroom, 3-bath unit, it is a big unit, a big property. How many people would you expect that would either purchase or rent a property that size? For how many people?
Well, it's got 3 bedrooms, so, typically you might have 5 to 6 individuals.
What's the max? Could be more than 5 or 6?
I can't guess.
Is there a max occupancy number for the unit?
I think the building code sets the occupancy rate of any residential structure at 200 square feet minimum per person.
Okay, so,
But practically speaking,
notice in the pictures that we saw, you did have one bed in the areas of the bedroom. That could be two beds as well, correct?
I can't testify.
Correct, or,
I mean,
could you put two beds in the bedroom?
sure,
So that's 6 beds, possible.
yeah, but they'd be smaller beds.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sir, you had a question?
Yep, another John Hurler, Atlantic Motel. What is, in the back of the property, you're saying that you added some styles,
Mhm.
okay? And that includes windows.
Yes.
What height are they, and because, you know, across the way are our guests. And we have a window in every unit, okay? Depending on where that window is, they're gonna have the view into our guest rooms.
Just as your guests will have a view into their windows.
Well, it
yes.
depends what the height is, but it.
Well, I mean, it's a
what's-
it's,
What, you know, you say it's, no, 35.
to the ridge.
Where are the windows in the back? What height?
Well, the windows on the second floor are 6'8" above the floor.
6'8"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Top of the window is 6'8".
So that's 8 foot high first floor, so that's 14'8".
Okay.
Is it?
I'm not,
I think he just wants to know the height
Yeah.
of where the
What kind
windows
of
on the
view-
second, I mean, you can scale that.
What kind of view does that window have to our guests?
I didn't study that. I know that my building is conforming to the building height that's allowed in the zone. And we're allowed to have windows on our walls that comply with our fire requirements as well.
All right, I'm just trying to make a point. You know, this is way over use of 6,500 square feet, okay? In my opinion. So you're gonna have 3 residential units with 3 bedrooms, 3 full baths, right? Okay, so being a wonderful mathematician from the CPA, so if I have 4 people in each bedroom, that's 12, correct? Two full
I can't
size.
testify to the number of people in each bedroom. I can tell you that we have 3 bedrooms. They're decent-sized rooms. Yeah, right?
And they
Whether there's nobody in a bedroom because it's a guest room, or there's 2 individuals, I don't know.
Okay,
It will meet the building
as an
code.
architect, I guess I can leave you also. The practical situation, you know, we're gonna have to have some discussion on what is the proposed use of this.
Residential. Okay.
Doesn't say you're gonna have, is the owner gonna reside? Okay. Okay.
Greg, I have a quick question just to follow up.
Yes.
If you were to build a conforming single-family residence, with the flood elevation needing to be what it needs to be, would those windows be at the exact same height?
It
As-
would.
So nothing would change if it was okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
If an office building went there, office buildings have windows too?
Yes.
How many desks can you fit in an office? I'm kidding.
Depends on what bed's.
I withdraw the question.
Okay.
May I ask one
Any-
more question, please?
Of course.
What provision's been made for storage?
Well, I'll go to the point, first floor. There we go. So each unit has a storage unit of,
Each of those boxes is one per unit?
yes, so this one's almost 48 square feet, 45 square feet, 46 square feet, 8 foot tall, that's a 3 foot door, 2 foot shelf, so big enough for bicycle, beach chair, that kind of thing, on the ground level, as well as closet space within the unit.
You would consider that adequate for a 1,700 square foot home?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
I just built a 2,000 square foot one, my garage is full, and the basement's full.
Yeah, I can't testify to
Okay.
living habits,
It's a
but
lot.
Anyone else on the board? Anyone else in the audience have any questions? Sir? Come on up.
Fred Netsky, 211 Broadway. I own a single-family house in the middle of that park. And houses change going to affect me as far as, am I going to lose my property? Because
This is a question, right now, it's a question for the architect. It's his testimony, so we're still going towards architectural questions. Sounds like maybe this is something a little different. Ben, if you could listen and maybe direct here.
Yeah, so at the end, after the testimony, there's a public comment portion where you get up and tell the board whatever you think about the application, how it impacts you, whether you're for it, against it. So you'll have that opportunity. Right now, it's only if you have a question of Mr. Cox related to his testimony. Okay.
Greg, can you fit a bicycle in those storage units?
I could. I think you can.
So
They're,
I mean, what I mean is, it's
How
deep,
deep
it's
is it?
deep
Yeah.
enough to fit a bicycle.
Oh, yeah, bicycles, 4 or 5 feet, 5 feet? Yeah, they're big enough.
And Ben, I think we can answer the gentleman's question when he's saying how this would affect his home. It wouldn't. And his home, based on even what Ray was saying before, meets the standard for a pre-approved single-family home in this zone because it predates the date that's in 19-9 F 76788. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, subcolon,
Subcolon. Yes, so your home's safe from anything that happens with this application, sir,
or in,
From a zoning perspective.
from a zoning perspective, correct.
or in that area
Yep.
in
Hold,
general.
hold on, can't just shout out. We'll come back to you. Anyone else with the architectural testimony? All right, Mr. Jackson, time for the planning testimony.
Thank you.
Also another person who doesn't need to go into long
Duly noted, Chairman.
overview on their academia.
Do you swear affirm a testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Christine Nazaro Cafone, for the record, testifying as a licensed professional planner. My licenses are current and valid, and I've been qualified here and before hundreds of other planning and zoning boards.
Thank you. We
Succinct
accept?
enough?
Yes.
Please give your analysis, assessment, and opinions.
I will do that. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. It's nice to be back. It's been a minute since I've been here. Justin Osceola from our office, I think, has done the last couple of applications here, so it's nice to see you all again and some new faces. The prior witnesses identified the variance relief that we're seeking, but we are in the MC2 overlay in the MC zone. So not to belabor the point, but townhomes are a conditionally permitted use. We violate the 3 conditions. Right, we need to have 25,000 square feet of lot area. We have about 6,363. We violate the density. It's proposed at 20.5 and the density is 10. And you have to have frontage on 3 streets, one of which has to be Chicago or Baltimore, and 2 of which have to be Broadway and Channel. So we have 2 out of 3, which some would say 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but we are non-compliant with that either. So what that means is, unlike other variances, where the planner will come and testify to you about what's particularly suitable, we don't have to do that here. What we have to demonstrate to you is that absent compliance with those conditional use standards, this is still an appropriate location for the use. On the D5 variance for density, because even though that's one of the conditional use standards, Mr. Sabaku calls it out in his report as a D5 density variance as well. So we're seeking the unmet conditional use standard as well as the density. The case law in New Jersey is very clear, and it directs us when we're dealing with a D5 variance for density. It's a permitted use in the zone, but you look at under the Randolph v. Town Center case, can the site handle the excess density, right? So as planners, you as board members, what do we consider, how do you determine that, right? So sort of subjective, there's no hard and fast test as to how can the site handle the excess density. But there are 10 things that I think are relevant to this application, about 10. There may be maybe some more that I don't have, that I think demonstrate clearly that the site can handle the excess density. And these are things that I think we typically look at as planners, right? I've been testifying as a planner for 30 years, been here lots of times, done a lot of applications. So in my opinion, and I participated in numerous discussions with this applicant, so having storage in the building was important. Having somewhere to go outside in the building was important. I've done a lot of townhomes and multifamily home products here in the beach and also in the borough, so I knew these questions would come up, right? We knew that you're gonna have to store bikes and beach chairs. So I think here, when you look at the fact that we do have storage assigned per unit, we have 2 parking spaces per unit, we have livable outdoor space, we improve the stormwater management on the existing property, the circulation can flow safely and efficiently, we have the ability to install a dry well, we have no loss of on-street parking, and in fact, our southerly parking space that's on the street, the line of that will not change. So the existing condition as it exists today between us and our motel neighbor to the south will not change. We have a maximum impervious coverage that is below what the ordinance contemplates at 43, about, nearly 44 versus 60. We exceed the minimum requirements of 1,500 per unit. We are producing, using the state multipliers, only 1 school-age child per unit. And here in the beach, the enrollments have been declining steadily. Per the Department of Education website, in 2024 to 25 school year, we had 623 kids enrolled in the school, and in 2021, 2022, we had 709, and it's gone down every year between those two. So the site will certainly be able to be developed and not overburden the school systems. So I think that those are all things that are dispositive, in my opinion, of the fact that the site can handle the excess density. Greg talked a lot about the MC2 zone, so I'm gonna go back, and I know he did that primarily
I
Uh,
as,
want to go back to the school thing. So this has the potential of putting more kids in the school,
it does,
and you view that as a benefit, when you have a school with a declining
population.
population.
Yes, I do, and the school system can certainly handle it. So I think it's important to talk about the MC zone and the MC2 overlay. In my opinion, when I read that section, and I'm gonna read right from the ordinance, under principal permitted uses, it reads, all non-residential uses permitted in the marine commercial zone and any existing single-family residential use as of June 30th, 2007. So as a planner, I take note of 2 things from there. Number 1, the zone is not looking to encourage any new single-family homes. It's certainly not looking to outzone anybody who's already there, but it's not looking to introduce any new, because it could have said, in addition to that, new single-family homes, and it chose not to. So this is not an area where the beach is inclined to have additional or future single-family home development. The other thing, and Mr. Savacool and I can have a discussion, sometimes we have respectfully agreed to disagree on the application of things before. I believe that the applicant could continue to occupy that single-family home. But if they were to demolish that and enlarge it, and let's face it, based on the evidence that we have before us and the familiarity with the site, they're not gonna rebuild that single-family home. It's not even flood compliant. So you're not gonna rebuild the existing structure as it is. As we know from what we see, the new housing stock and the new single-family housing stock that's built in the beach, it would be far larger than that. And in my opinion, that would require a D1 use variance, because it reads any existing single-family residential use. So 1 square foot over that becomes a non-existing net residential use and would be a new D1. And the reason I tell you this is because, right, we said, what is this gonna do to the future of the MC2 zone? When you read that stated purpose, the marine commercial, for the marine commercial 2, the MC2 overlay. The MC2 overlay zone is established to provide sites for low-rise development of attached residential units, townhomes, at medium to high densities. Such developments are intended to serve as a transition between areas of detached residence and the areas of more intensive commercial development. This overlay zone is intended as a first phase of more comprehensive land use planning strategy for the revitalization of the Broadway and Channel Drive area. In particular, the MC2 overlay provides opportunities for townhouse development along Chicago and Baltimore avenues, which serve as key pedestrian linkages between the residential area south of Broadway and the marine commercial uses north of Channel Drive. So while we don't know, and I've certainly participated in some of the projects that were approved over here that haven't happened, but when I look at that stated purpose, it reminds me of the Red Bank area. So, and I say this because when I was in high school, between 1986 and 1990, Red Bank was considered a bad area. People would go and take the bus to Eatontown, and I wasn't allowed to do that because Red Bank was a bad area. No one would believe that now, but back when I was in high school back then, and it was an area in transition. I'm not even sure my client was alive back then. So at this point, it's hard to sit here today and tell you that, yes, this is going to be better for the ultimate development of the MC2 zone. But what I can tell you, and that in my opinion as a planner, introducing high quality, stable residential housing stock into the area in the form of attached housing, we have seen it as planners in New Jersey, assist an area in transition and turnaround, rehabilitate itself. So I think that that's important because, and again, one of the developers in Red Bank, Woodmont Properties, who partnered with another development there, he was speaking at a session down at the League of Municipalities. And the topic was what can a municipality do to get its downtown revitalized? And one of the things that he said that I thought was really compelling was that residential density is a gift that you can give your downtown. The whole gist of the seminar was, if you're a municipality, what can you do that doesn't necessarily cost money to get your downtown going? And I think when you look at that stated purpose of the MC2 overlay, it was clearly intended to have this area be a catalyst for future and other growth. So we can't sit here today. Years ago when we got the Fisherman's Wharf approval done, we didn't know what was going to happen. We can't predict COVID. But I can tell you that it's my opinion as a planner, practicing in New Jersey for 30 years now, that I've not seen a scenario where the introduction of high-quality residential housing stock has had a deleterious impact on an area.
Let me interrupt you for one moment.
Sure.
Board member McFadden had a comment and a question about, well, why is a townhome across from a marine commercial better or different than a single-family home? You talked about a downtown revitalization. This isn't exactly a downtown. How is it like a downtown, and why is a multifamily townhome-style building more compatible with a downtown that has busy, that has trucks, that has other uses, that has pedestrians, as opposed to a conventional single-family home?
Well, I think here the instance is the conclusion that a single family is not better for that is the fact that your zone doesn't allow it. Right? When the MC zone was put in place, it didn't even allow the single families to be there. It only allows you to stay if you're there already, but your zone, it's inherent in your zone that it recognizes single family homes is not enough density, right? Because now you have 3 families that can go to the wharf side for dinner. It's a critical mass. I mean, and this is not a traditional downtown, but I don't particularly like the term, but the term they call it in an area is called walking wallets, right? You now have 3 families that can go and get ice cream and get coffee and patronize the boats or go out to dinner. So it's really about creating a critical mass of intensity if you're looking to turn around an area. Like I said, that is one of the things that I think when I was in high school, there was a McDonald's in the center of downtown Red Bank. And I think that one of the things that you really saw bring that around was the introduction of high quality housing stock. And that gets directly to, Board member McFadden was asking what makes it better, but that gets really to the heart of the negative criteria, right? The negative criteria, and we as planners have to demonstrate to you that there's not a substantial detriment on the zone plan or the public good. So here, the zone plan for the MC zone, it's really, the reason we write things like that is because write things like that, and when I say things like that, what I'm talking about is to allow the continuance of single family homes. The reason we do that as planners is because you don't want to render somebody's home non-conforming, right? These homes are here, they may stay for a long time. We don't want to make it so that if that home is staying there and they want to put a porch on it, they have to come to the zoning board of adjustment for a use variance. However, the clear intent is to phase them out, right? Is that they don't stay there and the area becomes more intense. And I think that the board can look at that when it comes to the impact on the zone plan. The other thing that I looked at when I was doing my prep for this is that, can you go and zoom in on your aerial, right? So when you go to our property to the north, the Harbor Lights condominium, thank you. Like the least technologically sophisticated person ever.
Across the red one.
All right, well, there you go, okay. So here's our subject property that you see on the aerial, and to the west is the Harbor Lights condominium development. So we are proposing 3 townhomes going in a north-south direction. There are 3 townhomes here going in an east-west direction. So I asked my office, can you tell me approximately the area that those townhomes are sitting on? And it's about 5,321 square feet is what we calculated it at, drawing the line, you know, almost in the middle of the access drive, which would be a density of 24.56 acres, right? That is about 5,321, and we know that ours is 6,300. So I think that that's a really good comparison, because when you're looking at the zone plan, right, it says townhomes have to be 3 in a row. It doesn't want a pod of 2, that becomes a duplex. So you have a similarly situated property here. I mean, these have garages in their access back, and you have 3 townhomes that are gonna go in an east-west direction here. Ours are 3 in a north-south direction. And I think that that's important, because again, this area, this MC2 overlay, was set up to be a transitional use. So I think we are going to see some additional commercial development activity here, right? We've approved it, it hasn't been built yet, but we know it's coming. When you go further in an easterly direction here, along Broadway, we know that we will see additional development in the area. So I think it makes a great transitional use. I don't think the zone in any way, shape, or form would contemplate an additional single-family dwelling here. In fact, it only allows for the existence of,
Let me ask you a quick question. So when you read it, it said development of attached residential units at medium to high densities, correct?
yes.
That was what you said. And then, do you believe when they then set the density at 10 units per acre, that was defining medium to high to them?
You know, well, they put what they thought would work, right? They thought at that time 10 units an acre would work. So, and one of the questions that was asked earlier, I believe it was a board member, is it Neil or Niall? Neil, board member Neil asked, is this gonna impact our COA, right? And it wouldn't, because that's the old growth share model, that and it was invalidated by the courts, the growth share model. So it's not as if your affordable housing obligation is tied to your residential COs that you issue, essentially. So 10 units an acre, so I can tell you, and I didn't say this in my credentials because I wanted to be brief, but I am a court-appointed affordable housing special master in the last round, special adjudicator in this round. So I have probably 36 towns that I sit and I liaise between the town and the court to help them get settlements. And I can tell you that in a lot of the negotiations that I participated in, you know, Fair Share Housing Center and the courts look at, you know, 8 units to the acre as a stale density that didn't really lead to any production of significant housing. So I think 10 was what they settled on, probably hoping that it would be the catalyst for additional development intensity in the MC2 zone. And I think if we go out on the ground and look at it today, I don't think that it really had the effect that the governing body was hoping it would when it put that zoning in. So when we looked at the density on Harbor Lights condos, so there was some dispute whether there was 12 or 13 units there. The tax maps seem to show 13. I counted 12, but so if it's
12.
It's 12, that's what I thought. It's 12 units, so that's 16 and a half dwelling units to the acre, right? So Harbor Lights condos, perhaps also above the MC2s, the 10 units to the acre. So a little bit more intensity there than was envisioned by the MC2 overlay. And we also looked at some of the motels, right? If you use the motels, like Atlantic Motel at 217 Broadway, 50 rooms on 0.86 acres. That comes out to a density of 57.90. Broadway Court Motel, 20 rooms on 0.58 acres, 34.09. Shore Point Motel, 205 Broadway, 28 rooms on 0.54 acres, 51 units to the acre. Even the old Seaport condos, which are a little further to the east, I believe those are right here, right? Those Seaport, those 8 units there, I counted 8. I actually testified on that project. And I testified on that project, and I remember Mr. Savacool, I believe this was the project, raised the issue of not losing any on-street parking. So that was another thing that I brought up with our team when we were going over the design of this. This one is developed at 13.93 units to the acre, so also over the MC2 zone. So I am struggling to find a substantial detriment, right? Because that's the test. The zoning, the requirements for our justification for the burden of proof is that we satisfy our burden of proof, we demonstrate to you that the site can handle the excess density. I think Mr. Cox did an amazing job of going through how this site is not going to be able to be developed for the underlying MC2, right? The underlying MC2, he did a great analysis of how to comply with ADA and the flood zones. You're not gonna have a restaurant, bar, or tavern. You're not gonna have a real estate office. You're not gonna have an experiential recreational use, the things that are envisioned here. You're just not gonna be able to develop the site in that way. So then when you go to the default underlying townhomes, we do violate the density. And we do violate, we're not the minimum lot size, but I think when you look at all the reasons that I think we have demonstrated as a team and the architecture, right, we took great care. The ordinance does, I think, an amazing job for something that's been on the books for a long time of setting out the design standards. I think the design standards in this MC2 zone are really well done, and we hit all of them. We really have done, in my opinion, a good job of capturing the vision for what the MC2 zone wanted it to look like. So I think the board can conclude that absent compliance with the unmet conditional use standards, this is an appropriate location. I think we've demonstrated at least, nearly a dozen ways how the site is accommodating the excess density. I think that criteria G of the land use law, which talks about providing sufficient space in appropriate locations, is satisfied. I think criteria I, which talks about creating a desirable visual environment, and I think criteria M, which talks about an efficient land, are all advanced by this application. This is a site that, Greg and I both read the MC2 zone purpose, and I don't want to read it again because I think I've made that point significantly. This is an area that is intended to be a catalyst. The beach wants this area to develop and wants it to help support the revitalization of this area. In addition to that, the 2021 master plan talks about continuing to develop at prevailing land use intensities, to, where feasible, elevate residential properties above the base flood elevations, to relate land use decisions to the established land use pattern of the borough, with new development taking place at essentially the same scale and intensity as nearby existing development projects. So I think that when you look at essentially the same scale, I think I would really be guided and persuaded by this pod that lays out east-west and our pod that's gonna lay out similarly in a north-south. So I think that there is a lack of substantial detriment here, and that's the test. The test is do not hold this or any other applicant to a standard that there be no detriment, right? Their shovels go in the ground, structures get built and revitalized. There's always impacts associated with that. But this is a commercial zone with an MC2 overlay on a very challenged property. So I think based on the testimony that is provided, the board can be very comfortable that we meet our burden of proof with respect to the negative criteria, and that there's no substantial detriment to the zone plan or the public good. And in fact, we help implement your MC2 zone, which is dispositive of the fact that it does not want new single-family development because it disallows it, but it does want revitalization and reinvestment and a catalyst for development in this area. And I think not only in Point Beach, but throughout New Jersey, it is a well-accepted planning principle that the introduction of residential density and high-quality, well-designed residential density will undoubtedly have a positive impact on the revitalization and redevelopment of an area.
Couple of questions, follow-up. Density can be an overdevelopment control, right? Can be.
It can.
So in our case, we meet height,
We do.
we meet coverage,
We do.
we're FEMA compliant,
We are.
we provide sufficient parking,
Yes,
we provide a significant recreational amenity,
we do.
we have garbage facilities that are adequate,
Yes,
we have adequate storage,
we do.
we have, I already said we're under the height, so when, we built the coverage flood building, we're under on building coverage, we're under on impervious coverage, we're improving impervious coverage. In your view, when you look at those bulks, is that overdevelopment of this site?
It's not, and that's why we went through, we've had multiple team meetings on this, right? Our project team has had multiple iterations of this plan. We've made revisions, and these are all the things that we talked about because I know that I'm the one who's gonna have to come and put the testimony on, so I need the building blocks to be able to say that, in my opinion, that we meet the test, that there's no detriment by having the ability for the site to meet and contain the excess density. And those are all the things as planners, right? Density is expressed as the number of lots per acre. That's what it is, right? It's defined in the MLUL as that. When I teach planning and zoning courses, I teach that routinely, that is what density is. But then when you apply that and say, well, what is density really as a planner? It's the ability to do all those things. And I know it's getting late and I don't want to go through them again, but there's a reason why we go through all of those things, because that really is what density is. It is the ability to park, the ability to control stormwater management, the ability to have storage, the ability to have no loss of on-street parking. I knew that would come up here because these are things that have come up in other cases that I think is important to the community. So I think here there are a clear lack of indicators that indicate that the site is not accommodating the excess density.
So just a couple more. Now, there was mention, and there was mentioned how the zone criteria talks about this being a pedestrian pathway from the south side of town where all the homes are to walk toward this area, right? Remember that?
I do.
So when you look on the left on Chicago, the townhomes that are there, would you say that is an attractive walking along the sidewalk and seeing these types of buildings as you go along on your left?
I think so, absolutely.
And likewise, do you get that same kind of effect when you go over here, the development that's, you said, is this a nice streetscape? Is it friendly? Is it also protective of the homes the way it's built?
I do, and I think if you look at the homes, the residential housing stock that is in our more successful towns, the Red Bank, the Princetons, there are some beautiful homes in downtown Princeton that are built and they absolutely enhance the curb appeal. Keyport by the water, another similar community that's undergoing transition. I think it creates, Justin did his thesis for graduate school on the broken window theory, right? And the broken window theory is that when you're in an area and you see broken windows and you see disinvestment and you see deferred maintenance, you don't feel good. It doesn't give you the feeling of wanting to be there. And I think the introduction of new quality residential housing stock has the opposite effect that the broken window does. It makes you feel like, I want to get my coffee and go for a walk down there or walk my dog or ride my bike along that path because I like it. It makes me feel good. It feels safe. It's attractive. It's nice to look at. So I think, which is again why I, as a planner who represents developers and throughout the state of New Jersey, I like development. I like high quality, good, sensible development. And here I just don't think, nobody's saying, we didn't come here tonight and tell you, you can't develop this site with a single family home, right? The ordinance wouldn't allow it. You need a use variance to do it. But I just don't feel as that's the best program of development, nor do I feel like it is aligned with what the MC2 zone wanted because it disallows it. It only allows them to continue, which I can tell you, like I said, we do that as a planner, you do that so that you don't make somebody's property non-conforming. But it is absolutely categorically done. If you allow something as the existence of a date, the intention there is to phase it out over time and eventually not have it as a permitted use. That at some point, they're there as of 2007, and at some point, those single-family homes are going away because that is not consistent with the future vision of the area. And that's exactly how I read that.
One last question. Scale and proportion. When the board sees single-family homes, a lot of times they're on a corner, they're 38 feet high, they're 5-foot setback where it's supposed to be 25 on a corner lot, and the board says that house is just too big, too overpowering, it's going to just be out of proportion, out of scale. Is what we propose any different or out of scale from the zoning requirements and as well as the prevailing development pattern? In other words, is it gonna look out of place, too big, too out of scale?
No, I would love to have asked Mr. Cox, if you were gonna design a single-family home on this, how many bedrooms would it have? And I bet it would be substantial. And I bet he would have a substantial number of bedrooms in that home, and it would be a very large home. And as one of the board members said, if this were an office building or a conforming single-family home, you would still have the situation of having second-story windows with the adjoining properties.
Thank you, and finally, I have no further questions.
Okay. I think I have nothing further on direct. I didn't talk about the bulk variances. It's not a D1, so they're not subsumed. We do require the bulk variance for the rear yard setback of 30 feet, where we have 10, as well as the bulk variance for the size of the deck. I think that those are both justified under the C2 criteria. I think Mr. Cox did a really good job of describing how he felt that those were a better zoning alternative for the layout and why we laid the building out in the way that we did to, given the size and configuration of the property. And then the 247 square feet of deck space gives people a little bit more outdoor living space, which is, I think, a nice element and something that I think has been important on many of the projects, the multifamily projects that I've worked on. So I think that those can be granted under the C2 section of the statute, citing the same positive criteria that I did for the D variances, criteria G, I, and M, because I think this is a tough site, right? I think we demonstrated that decisively. This is a tough site. You're not gonna be able to easily develop this under the underlying MC zone. So I think this is an efficient use of the land. I think we did a really good job. A lot of work has gone into what is before you tonight. There's been a lot of thought and rejiggering and redesigning. I mean, at one point we had vending machines outside of this. There's been a lot of iterations of this plan to come here tonight and tell you what we think would be a sensible development here. So I feel very confident in this plan. I feel very confident that this plan supports the statutory proofs, and I actually think it really will assist in creating the vision. It's a 6,300 square foot property, so I can only do so much, but I think it can certainly add to what is to be the ultimate vision for the MC zone. I think I hit all my points, right? Is there any in my outline that I didn't? I think that's it, so that's it.
Anyone on the board have any questions for planning testimony?
I want to ask a couple questions. First of all, I think I need to be educated. You mentioned, you quoted the master plan that we want to continue developing at prevailing land use intensities. Is the MC2 zoning plan at odds with this? That we want to increase the land use intensity of that zone?
I don't think it's at odds with it. I think the MC2 zone wants additional densities and a prevailing density. So the density, like I said, and the reason and that's why when you look at prevailing density, that's why I demonstrated that, can you go back to our little pod of townhomes, right? Because I think that the look and feel of that, when I hacked that little piece off and I asked my office to run a calculation as to essentially what that would be, that 3-pod, it's about 24.56 units to the acre for this little 3-section pod of townhomes. So I think that we are consistent with the prevailing density. The motels in the area are far, far more intense.
That's another question I have. Is that a valid comparison to compare the intensity of the motels to residential townhomes? Or I don't know if it's a valid comparison.
I think it all speaks to intensity and traffic and turnover of uses. So I think the board can certainly take notice of it, that those are relatively high intense motels. right? They have a lot of units associated with them, which means a lot of turnover, a lot of cars. You could have a motel room with 2 queen beds in it and have, 4 people staying in it. So I think it speaks to the intensity of the area and the fact that this is not a exclusive single-family home neighborhood, right? We're not asking you to consider putting this density in an area that is a platted single-family neighborhood.
And one final quick question. I think it might have been Mr. Jackson who kind of brought, maybe it was both of you together, about putting more kids in our school system. Is there really adequate storage for a family with children to live here year-round? When you look at these little storage rooms on the ground floor, basically in the garage, no attic, is there, honestly, let's be practical here.
I think there is. I mean, when I had my daughter, I lived in a ranch. I lived in a ranch with a tiny garage when my daughter was a school-age child. So.
I mean, I think people would have to rent storage space to live in these. If they-
We got that covered.
Yeah, actually, you're right, we do.
I wasn't at that meeting, but apparently we got that covered.
And I do think that in a community like this, these may be year-round units, they may not be. I wouldn't be at all surprised if these were occupied by snowbirds or somebody who had a place up in North Jersey and wanted to have a presence down here, at the beach. I would not at all be surprised if they were not occupied by year-round residents.
All right, I have a follow-up question to that, since you used the Harbor Lights as a comparison. Would you not agree that since the Harbor Lights have individual garages underneath their residential units, a fairly substantial drive and parking area and outdoor recreation space, and frontage on 3 of the streets, I can't speak to the square footage of the facility to know whether that's compliant. But since you do have some substantial compliance there, would you not agree that your comparison is a little shaded?
It's definitely not shady, Mr. Davis. No, it compares.
Not shady,
right.
shaded. You're trying to take one tiny piece of that entire development and say it's the exact same thing, and it's not by a long way.
I didn't say it was the exact same thing. I said it's going to function similar, right? When you drive by, you're going to see a pod of 3 townhomes here, and then you're going to see a pod of 3 townhomes here. So it's not in land use, right? There's a reason why we say in land use, each case has to rise and fall on its own merits, because it's very difficult to produce 2 sites that you have the same attributes. So that's why we use them as comparative purposes, right? You can't get away from the fact that if you were driving by there, you'd see a pod of 3, and if you made a right-hand turn, you'd see a pod of 3 more. That's not a radically different pattern. So when you say, and when your master plan says it should be substantially consistent, it's not like we're proposing 16 units in a row and they have 3 in a row there. So I think it's a really fair comparison. In fact, it's something that when I was preparing for this case, it wasn't in our testimony outline, and it was after, knowing the area and looking at it, I think it's a really relevant comparison, right? Like you would drive by and you would see that those don't perform radically differently. Of course, they're different properties. The one that the Harbor Lights on, it's a through lot. It's got 3 frontages. It's much larger than the subject property. So it's never meant in planning and zoning to be an exact comparison and say, well, this is what they did here, so we should have it here. Each case needs to rise and fall on its own merits, and there are challenges that are present on the subject property that don't present themselves on the Harbor Lights project. So that's why you as a board have to look at, what are we to do with this site, right? It's a tired old single-family home. It's not gonna stay there forever. The MC2 zone is just going to continue to evolve and develop. And we don't know exactly what that's going to be. We've seen hotels come in that area. We've seen the fishery that was in that area. So we don't know. It could just be high-end condos. Maybe somebody's going to propose a beach club there. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. But as a board member, I would struggle to come up with how 3 very well-designed, high-quality townhomes are going to have a negative impact on exactly what that is. And I think it is a better program than a single-family home. And I think that that is supported by my conclusion that the MC2 zone and the MC overlay, they don't want single-family homes here. Your zoning doesn't want single-family to go here. That's a statement of fact. So, that was a very long answer to your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How does the intensity compare to retail with one apartment above it?
So, again, I would think it would probably be, you're allowed to have a restaurant and a bar here. I think that that would probably be far less desirable than what we're proposing to the area. And I think, I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, but the traffic is gonna peak at off different times. If you have a bar here, it's going to be a restaurant here, it's going to be a lot, I would say, more intense than 3 townhomes.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Ray, you good? I'm good. Anyone in the audience have any questions of that planning testimony? No? Everybody's good? Ben, nothing special that you have?
Nope.
Now you get a chance, audience, to get sworn in. You gotta come up and,
Thank you.
yes?
I just
Oh.
briefly want to bring Mr. Devine up.
Oh, okay, hang on, not yet.
Just very briefly.
Sure.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Your name, please?
Tom, Devine.
Just very briefly, Mr. Devine, you looked at lots of different options with this, right? And one of
Yes.
the things we talked about when you were the density was, does this work with 2 units?
It does
And
not.
Why not?
Dollar-wise, it didn't work. You'd be losing money. It just
It's just not feasible.
it just didn't work out.
Okay, so that's why you came up with the 3.
That's why we came up with the 3, yep.
Okay, that's all I wanted to just put in the record, that we did explore it, it just doesn't work.
Sure. Anybody have any questions of that? 3 unit, 2 unit? No? All right.
Yes, I
Oh.
do. When you, like, you would have actually lost money on this, or you just would?
Yes, we would've lost money on it.
What's your cap rate on this now, or projected cap rate on this now, if you don't mind me asking?
On the 3 units,
Yes.
off the top of my head, cap rate, I don't know.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, now,
I have a question for Mr.
sure,
Did you know the rules when you bought it from?
gotta state your
John
name.
Miller.
Did you know the rules when you bought the property?
The rules as in for the zoning?
Yeah.
I knew what the zoning was.
Okay, so is your financial detriment the problem of the town and the people around your property?
Well, I didn't buy this property initially to do specifically what we're doing here.
What did you buy it for?
I bought it for an investment property.
As a single family as it is now?
To start, yeah, I knew there could be potential of a hotel going across the street. And I know some people on Channel Drive, and I knew that, they were trying to build it up, and, they have a big plan for it. So that's why I purchased the property.
So is it fair to say it was a speculation that did not work out for you?
So far, it hasn't worked out or not worked out.
Okay, fair enough.
Anything else, Mr. Jackson?
No
All right,
further
now you can come up, get sworn in, and tell us whatever you want now.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'm gonna keep it really
You
brief.
state your name
John
again.
Hurler again, 215 Broadway, the Atlantic Motel. Thank you, everybody, it was a good presentation. So first thing I do want to say is Mr. Devine did approach us to buy our motel. Okay? And I do believe he wants to be in multifamily or the motel business. The first thing, and I'm not a professional, I don't even have a college degree, okay? But I've been an innkeeper for 30 years, and my family's been innkeepers, starting at the Broadway Court Motel, and now the Atlantic Motel, so it's 50 years. When I looked at the plans that were given, okay, I looked for key things, because I know how the Airbnb and the rental market works, okay? First, I'm just gonna be real short and sweet. The storage, okay? These were not designed to sell to people, okay, that are gonna have families and put kids in the school. That would be a great thing, okay? You have I think it's less than 50 square foot of storage, okay, for 1,700 feet of living space. I've been all this through with my wife. I just built a house on Trenton Avenue, okay? Storage is important, okay? That storage space that they have for that whole unit is like the size of a small walk-in closet, okay? That, no one's gonna pay the kind of money that it demands in town, okay, for their family to live there. Why 3 beds and 3 full baths? Now, I'm an innkeeper, right? I look at that as, that's 9 motel rooms. It was even pointed out, right? You have motel rooms with 2 queen beds that accommodate 4 adults. We have rooms with 2 double beds, and they will put 4 adults, and we'll sell that all day long, okay? Now, if I do the math then, right, at any given time, you could have 12 adults, not to mention children, in those units, okay, rented in the season, okay? That's 36 people on the property, okay, at a given time. Now, this is just rough justice math, right? So, but then, now let's think about garbage for 36 people in the season, in the summer, okay, and what's that gonna do to us? They put that 5 foot away from our fence where our parking is, okay? You know, and for everything that was said about, you know, well, you know, it has to be this use, it has to be this use, well, you didn't try something that would be more suitable, okay? Could they get the single family? Could you have 2 family? I don't know, okay, but this is like the highest use of possible, okay? And everybody knows Airbnb, okay? Some of the motels in towns are even listing their rooms on Airbnb now. You know, we see it, and we're like, oh, should we be doing that? You know, so at any given time, okay, I maintain there could be 36 adults at that property, definitely 2 weeks in June, all of July, and all of August, okay? And I just wanna say one thing, you know, it's pretty nice over there too. You know, it's not a bad area or anything by any means, you know. Revitalization, I could understand, maybe you could use a little revital, but it's pretty nice. We got there's nice restaurants over there, you know, the motels are nice. And the one thing I will say, you know, and it's hard on everybody, because it gets crazier every year, you know? I don't know if there's just more, the North Jersey and New York and everything just gets more and more people, and you know, we're glad to see people come and have a good time and spend their money. We all want that, right? But, you know, with a density like that, okay, and you know, I'm blessed, you know, I have a father that was a landlord. You know, he used to, when I was a kid, he'd take me around to Elizabeth and we'd see the apartments and stuff. You know, whenever you put people, you know, into a density like that, it creates problems, right? You got garbage problems, you got vermin problems, you got, and you know, these are people that don't know each other either. You know, they're renting, and your rent structure is not like a hotel motel type structure. We're there 24/7, 365, okay? You got 3 units here that they're gonna wanna rent, okay, for the maximum dollars possible, okay? Who's gonna be there to take care of it? They don't, and you know, we have fire, state, local, all sorts of inspections, and they don't have to put up with that, okay? So it's like building a mini motel is really what's taking place, okay? I would expect to see other things in the plan if it was for, you know, long-term attracting families. It would be great to get some kids in the school system, right? You know, that is a big #1 concern. That's not gonna happen here, okay? I can say that. That is definitely not gonna happen, at least with this plan. I'm sorry I took up so much of your time. Thank you very much.
No. All good. Mr. Jackson, you didn't have any questions? All right, next, come on up and get sworn in.
Yeah, sure. Right next to you?
Raise your right hand.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
swear affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah,
Can you spell your last name, Fred?
N-E-S-K-E. Okay.
First name basis.
You said it before. As soon as it came up.
Okay. My point of view is, there is a spot for one-family places there. Right now on Channel Drive Broadway, there's 4 or 5 houses there. How far is your plan going for these townhouses and condos? Are they going on the west side of Chicago and move towards Spike's Fishery and towards 35? Are they just gonna stop there? Because there's houses there too, and there's people there. And if it applies to one, it applies to all. And I think it's wrong. I took the house for a private residence. I've lived in it, quite a few years, too many years, most people say. And they kind of chuckle about it. But that's beside the point. We have to, I'm not against the project. I just don't think the project's been thought out enough. You're just gonna, I'm not against certain parts of the project, but they all have, everybody has to be, know the full game before you can, you know, do or say anything.
Sir, with your permission, I put the zoning map on, you asked what's the size of the marine commercial overlay, Mr. Savick will perhaps confirm that, but that hatched area in the middle, I think that's where, this is the zone, when you asked how big this overlay zone is. That's accurate, right?
That's correct.
So if you get a sense,
So,
I think we're right here. And I think you're right there.
Yeah, but I'm in the middle. I didn't say anything wrong.
No, you just asked the
There's,
question, I thought I'd put it up.
there's other, you know, areas that you eventually just gonna be, you're gonna get into. Now you're gonna throw those three or four families out of the house, out of this, off the street, one of which has the same, blessing as I have as far as this ordinance goes. I was told this ordinance was going to, didn't affect me. And that's the way, as far as I know, that's what I led on. Now all of a sudden she was telling me she wants to get rid of me.
I didn't say that. Don't
Yeah.
say that.
Well, you are.
No, I didn't
I'm
think you were
one
just-
person.
I know, that's not what I said.
You sure made it. We don't need no one-family homes. We better off without them. You know. But there's two
You were
sides to
caught.
everything. There's two sides to everything. Everybody can look at it now. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I wanna see how you type that out.
Da-da-da. All good? Anyone from the board have any other questions? No, Mr. Jackson, why don't you sum it up and?
Yes, thank you. So maybe that was a good segue to put the zoning map up. I mean, this is a zone that allows this type of development. It's very small in the grand scheme of our whole town, and we're not right smack in the middle of it, but we're toward the middle of it. So the use here is a permitted use. And as usual, let me just get my right visual here. As usual, Aquitecture, Mr. Cox, has provided a beautiful scale development. And I believe you did one of the other jobs along Channel, right?
Yeah, we've done a couple.
So this is exactly what the zone calls for. And in terms of whether this is overdevelopment or out of proportion or out of scale, the density is higher. But we meet the height, we meet parking, we have an adequate recreational amenity, and we're under the building coverage, we're under the impervious coverage, we're including what's there. It's the appropriate scale for what's there. And what the master plan, from what Mr. Cox recited, it provides a walking, corridor from the south side of town to get over to Channel Drive, where some of the more frequented establishments are located. So, I was just at the, visiting my daughter in Hartford, and I went to the Mark Twain House, which I'd recommend for anyone. And they had all his sayings written on the wall, a lot of his sayings, not all of them. And I took a picture of this one because I thought it was great. It says, "All good things arrive unto them that wait, and don't die in the meantime." Look at what Channel Drive looks like. Where is the surge of redevelopment? Where is the wave? Mr. Cox and I were in here years ago with Mr. Danny Cohen, had a vision. Never came to fruition, just didn't work. And look at what we have now. We have essentially ruins along Channel Drive. When was the last new development that came to Channel Drive? There's been some infill, there's been some bars, but there really hasn't been a surge of redevelopment. And what we have are some of these relics. And the relic that we have right now, a perfect example, is 218 Channel Drive. You say, okay, that's a small house there, you bought it for an investment. Is that really, it's not FEMA compliant, obviously. It's basically a small, it's something where time has passed it by. We're coming forward with an application that puts 3 units in there. I asked the board to use its own sense. Anytime that you have walked along this area, the other multifamily developments that we've been discussing, that surround this, that are right in that little channel, right in here, have you ever walked by and said, oh my goodness, those townhomes are just packed. The parking is spilling out into the street. They're rental, just free-for-alls. It looks like, I'm waiting for Mardi Gras beads to come flying off of the balconies when I walk by there. It's just not that kind of a product. Those are beautiful upscale buildings, and when you go by, I respectfully submit, if the board contemplates what goes on there, it's quiet, and it's mostly empty. Because people who buy them, they don't come down every week. And, you look at the aerial shots, and there's no cars in the parking lots. There's 2 cars. This does not create a free-for-all. It creates a beautiful opportunity to get exactly what the zone calls for. Now, we can't get 10,000 square feet. There aren't a lot of 10,000 square feet lots that are, feasibly available, or maybe people do more of this stuff. But like what Ms. Cafone pointed out, we fit in exactly with what's across the street. If you turn this like that, it's basically the same thing. Now, as Mr. Davis pointed out, sure, well, they have a parking lot, they have underground parking, under garage parking, they have a pool, it's a lot different. They front on 2 streets. Well, when you have a conditional use, the use is permitted here. We're not trying to force a use that's not supposed to be there. Do we meet all the criteria? No. But we do meet a lot of the criteria, and I respectfully submit that this is a product that is appropriate for this. Thank the board for its time and attention. We're hopeful you see it the way we do. Thank you.
Anything on the condition, Ben? All
No.
set? Ray, anything else before we get going here in deliberations? All right, we get a motion for deliberations, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Davis?
Okay. Oh, it's so fun to be the lead off.
Yeah, you're in that seat.
Yep. Okay.
Unless you say, Ms. McFadden, you're leading off, I'm gonna wait.
I wouldn't do that.
I just
Okay.
heard my name.
Okay, we have obviously what is a very handsome design with some really well thought out designs, elements that mitigate the lack of conformance with the MC2 condition requirements for townhomes. And I think it's really a marvelous idea, and I can think of a couple of properties real close to where I live that would work out really well with this. In I guess my now 12 or 13 years on the board, I have been completely convinced by testimony of both Mr. Cox and Ms. Fong on certain matters, but not this time. I think there's a couple of mitigating concerns that I just can't get past. While I agree with the comparison of just pure size of the 3 units across the street envisioned on this lot, it's sort of the same thing, but the fact of the matter is that eliminates even thinking about all the other compliant components on that other property. So that it just doesn't convince me. My big issues here are the undersized lot that then it's a quarter of what's required with double the density. It's just an awfully hard one to overcome. On top of that, and I know there's been a lot of testimony and talk about compliant parking. As far as I'm concerned, the parking arrangement on this is a Tetris game. And to say, well, it's just the same as, anybody else, are you gonna leave first, am I gonna leave first? This is some really tight parking. Again, to compare it with the properties across the street, or that I've seen in other condominiums in town that have individual garages that provide parking underneath the units. I just find this to be really difficult. And then lacking any kind of storage whatsoever. Again, it really does just say this is going to be rental housing. And not that that's a bad thing, but I think when we're looking at what the master plan is really trying to enhance in terms of the zone, I'm not sure that's the best use. I'm certainly looking forward to what other board members have to say, but that's kind of where I feel it.
Ms. McFadden?
Well, I'm not gonna have much to add to that because I think you read my notes. I was going to talk about the tight parking and almost like Tetris, the inadequate storage, and even the potential garbage issues. And yes, it's an attractive plan, as always. But just to keep it brief, because I agree with everything Mr. Davis said, this is kind of like putting a quart into a pint container, I think. I'm done.
Mr. McGee?
Yeah, I think I see it a little bit differently. I kind of been back and forth from the time we got to look at it, when we got the email from Karen and drove by and took a look. I mean, we're all familiar with the area. And I guess the key question here, like Mr. Capone said, is can the site handle the density? And I think it can. I think that's illustrated by what is happening across the street. I think it's illustrated by what's gone on in the other complexes that have been built in this MC2 zone. It's an underutilized zone, and not just the MC2 zone, but the MC zone. That's considered to be seasonal and or commercial. And if we want to bring in year-round residents, and I can speak from experience, I have had kids, students in my classes at Point Pleasant Beach High School who lived in some of who grew up in and still live in some of these existing townhome complexes that we saw on the map tonight. So I think there is a potential to bring in more students into the district, and that was a talking point for a couple of the professionals and a couple of the protesters, and that's fine. But I think that this would encourage some year-round residents. It could encourage investment. It could be the catalyst for what the master plan clearly states it hopes to happen in that zone. Storage-wise, I don't know. I mean, they seem like nice walk-in closets. I've never seen Mr. Cox design a property that doesn't have at least enough closet space as far as bikes and stuff. I don't know. But to me, I'm leaning towards being in favor of the project.
Mr. Neal?
I think it's a beautiful design, and I do think that the design fits the region. I'm just not certain that it fits the property. I do agree with everything that that was testified about bringing into the school is a good thing. And I think you guys check a lot of the boxes. Unfortunately, I think that I think they are doing everything they can just to check the box. So we're doing the minimal in order to check the box. So, the parking, I think, is gonna be an issue, right? The stalls with a wall there, 9 feet is tight, right? I drive an SUV, it's 7 feet, so that's a foot on each side, and I'm not squeezing in a foot in my door, to be honest. So, I do think that there are some flaws, but I think that the flaws are because of, this is a tough area, right? This isn't an easy spot to design something. And I understand your desire to build, and hey, if you're gonna take the risk, you should also have a reward, so I appreciate that. Right now, I am currently, looking favorably on this, but I am open to hear what some of the other people have to say.
Clayton?
I think the building is really nice. I live, right down the street. I guess I could say from experience, from a side note, that I guess maybe it was last year or the year before, it was a little concerning when I was out walking my dog at 5:30 in the morning, and a SWAT team was moving in on the current house and tenants there. So this would definitely, I think, be, an upgrade. I agree with Mr. Davis. I wrote down a bunch of comments, as far as exactly the points that he made. I did think that, Mr. Cox and, is it Cafone?
Yes.
Testimony was very compelling, even if she wants to kick Mr. Neski out, just kidding. But as far as the concerns, as Mr. Davis laid out, the undersized lot, several other board members have talked about the parking, the storage. So I'm on the fence right now, and I'm gonna be interested to hear the chairman's view.
Mr. Simonovic?
Well, this is my first time hearing Mrs. Cafone speak, and learned a lot, so I appreciate you educating me on a lot of this. I think you hit it on the head. This is a challenging property. I think you wrote it's a tough site. I tend to agree with you in your comment when you said I can't see a better option here, and I think the spirit of the intent of this MC2 zone is to foster this development, but I do agree that it feels really, really tight, and like we're trying to squeeze this in, and I'm especially attentive to what Mr. Hurler said, and appreciate your testimony. Like you, I want places for residents to live here year-round and raise families, and Mr. Cox's design is beautiful, and I hope that's the intent here, is to not have a bunch of rentals. I just don't know how controllable that is for us to make that decision as to what Mr. Devine decides to do with this property. I disagree a little bit with Mr. McGee. I think this would be a tough place to have a family raised and stay and grow into with the storage, but aside from the parking and the garbage concerns, I do think the garbage concerns are real. I think that one can per family here is gonna be a problem, but I'd like to see that addressed a little bit better if we were able to make that concession. I think that's a valid concern for the neighboring property. But overall, I think looking at this property, beautiful, listening to the presentation, understanding the purpose of where we're trying to go with this zone, I'm leaning right now to be favorable on this as well.
confused me, that finish. I swore he wasn't favorable, and then he was. I think a lot of weight was put into the purpose, and, you know, obviously talking about, before I go there, let me first go back to the design. Obviously, Mr. Cox, Architecture, and what they did from a building point of view, other than I don't think a single-family house would be this big and it wouldn't match that. Obviously, it's a beautiful design, so I could just move right off of the fact that, of course, architecturally, I think it would be an improvement over what's there. That's obvious to anybody looking at the design. So now let's go more towards the use, the intensity, and all the things around it. And again, a lot was put into the purpose, and having this being stated as a catalyst for the area. And I think all of that is very true when it applies to all the things that go into what this is. And the biggest thing is a 25,000 square foot lot. And then when you start talking about the outdoor areas, the streetscapes, you brought up both examples of the two other pieces and showed the beautiful streetscape. Well, this isn't a streetscape, it's a 125-foot lot. The other ones are full blocks that have that uniformity, the wide sidewalks, the proper shade trees, the proper other vegetation, the stoops, all the things, the garages, like they go into that. This is a single lot with a little bit of an oversized home on it. So it doesn't do all those things that are part of what you used as your examples in those other townhomes that are here. I think the parking is very restrictive and difficult, as has been outlined by other board members. I think one of the things Ms. Cafone said was outdoor livable space. And right now what we're talking about is the outdoor livable space is a little concrete pad in the back of the thing with maybe a couple of chairs on it. I don't know that that's really a shareable, usable outdoor space for three bedroom units, so it's lacking in those things. So I think what we're doing is we're picking a small portion of an area that we wish was combined in a different way, right? If we all imagine that that lot was part of that hotel lot and you had that big area and the future that Mr. Cox and Ms. Cafone are talking about, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about hand-picking all the attributes that we want to talk about in this very undersized 25% of the requirement lot, and not talk about all the things that are required to go along with that, which is those outdoor open spaces, which is those streetscapes and the planning in that way. Pedestrian, that gets mentioned in here of pedestrian traffic and things like that. There's no pedestrian traffic here because there's nowhere to walk because the whole lot is a building. So it's just forced to me, and I don't see that this thing becomes the catalyst to make all that other area that we're looking at and saying it's underdeveloped, that a 3-unit townhome does that on this little corner lot. I just don't think that that's the thing that's gonna launch the rest of the development. I think this lot, as it fits into the MC, will follow in some way at some point, but for me, it's not the right choice at this time to see those things come together, so. Get a motion to close deliberations.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Aye.
Favor? Aye.
Can we get a motion, there was, I'm
And
up in the air.
just as
so-
a reminder, it's a D variance case, so it requires 5 affirmative votes in order to pass.
Get a motion for approval of the case?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McGee, second by Mr. Simonovich, to approve application 2025-35, Thomas Devine. Secretary Davis.
No.
Ms. McFadden.
No.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Clayton?
No.
Mr. Simonovich?
Yes.
And Chairman Snodgrass?
No.
Application denied.
Thank you.
We're all wrapped up?
We're all wrapped up?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.